Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Aggressive Progressives. We're here with our panel. You know who they are. We all love them. I want to show you this tweet from Glenn Greenwald. He says, if you compare the propaganda, falsehoods, deceit, and lies you were fed for 3 years by glittery cable stars who make many millions of dollars a year to the brave skepticism and smart dissent of YouTube hosts like Kyle Kalinske and Jimmy Dore, it tells you all you need to know. Well, thank you, Glenn. That was very sweet of you. That was very nice. I'm very flattered. Of course, I'm just basically copying your reporting most of the time.
Well, but his larger point is that it's not remunerative to tell the truth. And when the herd is all going in one direction, going off by yourself, even if you think that it's the right thing to do, you're never going to be rewarded for that.
No, we were all smeared.
Yeah, I think Glenn Greenwald is totally wrong. I think there's plenty of evidence of Russian collusion. All you do is just look north, south, east, and west of Korea, and you'll find the Russian collusion evidence right there. It's so obvious.
Would it be north, east, south, and west of Trump Tower?
Yeah.
Or of Moscow? I'm trying to.
Or to Crete. Either one's fine. Yeah.
Not there. Yeah, that's a good point. So
actually, hold on. Is there evidence of Russian collusion here? Wait,
nope.
Is it over here?
Nope.
Right. Nope.
Can you imagine, right? If they all
That's unbelievable.
Now they all made videos joking. Yeah. If Rachel Maddow made a joke about, oh, don't find any collusion under here. I made millions of dollars off you. But that's actually what she is doing.
But that's what George Bush did, what he's referring to.
And
we should all throw shoes at them.
So Matt Taibbi had an article that he called the Russian collusion, Russiagate, the WMD of today's.
We're gonna cover that, right? We have that.
Yeah, we have that.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe I'm getting ahead of.
No, it's okay.
But he's 100% right, and look. On the one hand, we're laughing and congratulating ourselves for getting it right. But I'm actually not that happy about it.
But if you don't laugh, you'll cry. That's why I'm laughing.
That's why.
Because it is sad.
It's really depressing that we can't trust our news media. And, the confidence.
After Iraq, they did this. After Libya, they did this. After Syria and Venezuela, they're still doing it right now with Venezuelans.
Yeah, it's
But
really,
that's why we have a job. That's why I exist.
I don't want this job.
I don't want it either.
Yeah, but I mean, really, like just holding the media to account is like a full-time job on its own because there's so much, and it would be easier if it was like the National Enquirer where it's just all like ridiculousness, right? But they mix in some good reporting, so you can't just say it's all bad. So you have to pick and choose, and that's our job, right? We have to suss out the good reporting and the bad reporting. Unfortunately, this issue, there has been near universal agreement on this foregone conclusion that there was this conspiracy between Russia and Trump. And if you're against that narrative, then you are the crazy one.
You're a traitor.
Right?
You're almost a traitor.
Yeah. And another thing too that was a little bit depressing is that there are so many people who were disappointed that our president is not a traitor, right?
Yeah, that's it too.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the Mueller report saying our president isn't a traitor. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a weird reaction to finding out
it's
your leader isn't a traitor, right?
And look, I've always thought, again, I'm not saying that they're equivalent, the left and the right, but what the left is doing with Trump is similar to what the right did with Obama, right? They wanted Obama to fail, right? They wanted the president of the United States to fail.
Yes.
And as long as it was politically expedient for them, that they didn't care what damage that would do to the rest of the country. And Democrats really wanted Trump to be, they wanted our president to be a traitor.
Yeah.
They actually want him to be a Putin puppet.
They actually do.
Because then that would make them so happy, like, we got him, right?
Well, it absolves them. It absolves them of responsibility for losing in 2016. That's what it comes down to, because if he did collude, then that explains the loss, because we had everything going for it. Hillary Clinton was the shining, we cleared the field for her. We made everything, we prepared everything just right for her to ascend to the presidency, and it was cut from under us by Donald Trump. How is that possible? It's not possible unless there's some serious funny business going on.
And I think people have to really start digging deep and thinking, why did people vote for Donald Trump?
Yes.
What was he appealing to what could you possibly think Donald Trump is going to provide for you as a greater security in your future? And he pushed that button for people enough. So that is a fail of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, the question is not why did people vote for him? Why were people so desperate enough?
Yes.
That they would vote for him. And that's the question the mainstream media is not going to answer. They're going to ignore. And the Democratic Party is going to ignore.
Well, the Democratic Party they're gonna wait for the full report to come out. That's the important thing. Is we got to see the full report. That's the new goalpost.
And let me just say, people who keep saying I often will say jokingly that I'm not a journalist and that's not what I'm doing. I'm just a guy with a bullshit detector calling balls and strikes like I see them, right? And I also did investigation, right? Like we had Bill Binney on the show, right? The top code breaker from the NSA, who early on told me he's also founded the Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, which debunked WMDs in real time. So you'd think the news media would call him on this. They didn't. You know who did? Nightclub comedian Jimmy Dore called him. And you know what he told me? He told me the intelligence community is lying about the Russian break-in and the hack. And they're lying to Donald Trump and they're lying to the people. Everybody else had access to him. Nobody called him. MSNBC didn't call him, CNN didn't call him. Nobody else here called him. I called him. I got Bill Binney. Same thing with Venezuela. I got Max Blumenthal. Max Blumenthal is in the country. Hey, did this really happen? CNN saying that Max Blumenthal, no, that didn't happen. Everybody else waited 3 more weeks for the New York Times to tell them it didn't happen. We told you it happened in real time right here. We debunked it. Nobody paid attention to us. We're supposed to be debunking the mainstream news media, not waiting for them to debunk themselves. And we're doing it right here at this show. So if anybody wants to watch this show, we're debunking the bullshit of the corporate news media every week in here, which is what we're supposed to do at the Young Turks. This is supposed to be our mission. Not repeating what the establishment news says, but debunking it. And that's what we're doing here.
And this is the same mainstream media who would film empty podiums for hours waiting for Trump to speak. And I mean, what kind of publicity did they continually give this man who had nothing but bad ideas?
And when I say that I don't consider myself to do journalism, here's Glenn Greenwald correcting me. He says, and just for future reference, documenting the falsehoods, the baseless conspiracies, and deceitful narratives being peddled without dissent by the major corporate media isn't blogging or media criticism. It's journalism. It's reporting, and it's vital. So that's what we've been doing here at this show. We've been doing journalism and real reporting, and it's vital. And I'm here to tell you that it's not that hard to do. I'm here to tell you that I'm not smart. I'm not a great investigative reporter. I'm not even an investigative reporter. You know what I am? I'm a guy who tells you the truth because I'm not bought, and I don't let my anger issues detach my critical thinking skills.
Well, I think you have a healthy dose of skepticism on what you're hearing from the government and from corporate news media, and that's what we should all have. And it saddens me to see that we've learned almost nothing from the Iraq War.
Nothing.
So Iraq War for me was a turning point in the way I looked at my country, the way I looked at our news media. I mean, honestly, before the Iraq War, I was a little bit of the America, yeah, we're awesome kind of guy, right? And I realized, no, not awesome. In many ways, awful. And I've been very skeptical and very critical of everything that I read and hear on television and online. So, I mean, hopefully with this, we will have more of that by the general population, and everyone would hold media to better account. But it's just ridiculous to me that we're having the same narrative right now with Venezuela. It's just so frustrating because, first you start by demonizing the ruler of the country. He's a monster, he's a dictator, he's an autocrat.
Right.
Bad.
People are suffering.
Right?
And the next one is?
Next one is his people are suffering. Terrible situation. There's a humanitarian crisis.
Yes.
We gotta do something, right? And what do? Then we have some kind of regime change.
Yeah.
Either through war or through coups and other things.
Or death squads.
Yes. And next thing you know, we are in charge of a country that sits on a large amount of oil or some other natural resource.
And we install a puppet that's going to keep the money from their natural resources from their people and give it to American corporations.
And why doesn't the news media, I mean.
Because they're owned by the people they're supposed to be exposing.
Right, that's exactly right.
Which is why if you get it wrong and you work for YouTube, there's no point to you.
Yeah, no, look, that tells you everything you need to know, right? Because the same people who go on MSNBC and CNN and claim to be so saddened by this plight of the Venezuelan people,
right,
because they are under autocratic rule, are the same ones who never ever question Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Right?
Or our genocide right now in Yemen.
Yes.
And let me tell you something, if there's a humanitarian crisis in this hemisphere. It's happening in the United States. There are more people living in poverty in the United States than there are people in Venezuela. And if you're on YouTube pushing for regime change in Venezuela, why don't you just go get a job at CNN? If you're just gonna repeat and what the mainstream news media says, what are you doing on YouTube?
Yeah, also, I mean, let's look at our prison population. How many people do we have incarcerated?
We're the world's largest penal colony.
Yeah.
We oppress our own people. And who are those people? Minorities.
Yeah.
We'll lock up white people. Not one guy from Wall Street went to jail.
And then when they get rehabilitated, they get to vote, right?
So here, Caitlin Johnson had a great article, and she says, for a clear-eyed leftist, it's been an exhausting couple of years. The effort to hold on to facts and evidence while being buffeted by relentless waves of gaslighting propaganda has been tough on many, and many have lost friends and allies along the way. That's happened to me for sure. Lost lots of friends. Lost a lot of friends in comedy over it. And then, because they disagree with me politically, they start to call me names and smear me. So I'll give you one more, Michael Tracy.
Isn't that odd? Isn't that really strange that political differences divide friendships like no other difference?
Yeah.
Like if you hated French food and I love French food, we're not gonna stop being friends because of it, right?
Or if you're different religions. I mean, literally, if you're different religions, your one religion is gonna, I think that you are going to spend eternity in hell.
Yes.
But we can still hang out and be friends. But, I mean, it seems like I would have an obligation to try to convert you if I really cared about you, right?
Right, yes.
But no, people seem to be able to put that aside. But this, it's, or I mean, even back during the days of Obama, I think it was just as bad in a different way. If you would be critical of Obama and you were more centrist, liberal friends, just didn't want to hear it. And you were talking about drone strikes or double taps.
They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. Yeah.
Or the irony of people who even on this network has smeared me as a conspiracy theorist because I covered a news story that had the name Seth Rich in it. I covered it one day, didn't push it. And people on this network lie to their own viewers and say that I pushed, and they're the ones who've been pushing this conspiracy at the top of their lungs for 3 years. And they're a bunch of liars and frauds. And I've been getting it right, and I'm a comedian.
Here's my question. Let's say the Mueller report was released and it had evidence of collusion. There was hard evidence of Russian collusion. Do you think that the people who were right about it, the racial amount, they wouldn't be celebrating? They wouldn't be saying in your face to the people who got it wrong,
my
right?
God.
I mean,
there'd be a parade, a never-ending parade down my street. In my face, they'd be doing it. Yeah. So I say I am so glad that I come from the stand-up comedy world and not journalism. How depressing to be stuck in a profession largely filled with willful propagandists, grifters, and hacks who are, in fact, chosen for their positions in news media because of their obsequiousness to power.
So I saw this today from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She wrote, he can stay, this is about Trump. She says, he can stay, he can go. He can be impeached or voted out in 2020. But removing Trump will not remove the infrastructure of an entire party that embraced him, the dark money that funded him, the online radicalization that drummed his army, nor the racism he amplified and reanimated. So
she leaves out a big part.
She does, yes. But the point is, he's really just a symptom of a much larger problem.
Yes, he's a regular Republican, if these people haven't noticed. 2 out of the last 3 RNC chair people of the Republican Party apologized for their racist strategy of, what is it called? Southern strategy.
Yeah.
So, and now you're gonna act like Trump is some kind of, he is the logical progression of the Southern strategy, is Donald Trump. So when the party chases Barack Obama around for his birth certificate for 4 years, this is the natural result. So this idea that I couldn't vote, I had to vote for Hillary Clinton because Donald Trump was a unique monster is wrong. Jeb Bush just confirmed that.
He's a regular monster.
He's a regular monster.
Look, for what, 50 years, 60 years, the Republicans were using dog whistles.
Yes,
right?
And he stopped using
and the dog whistles got louder and louder to the point where they're no longer dog whistles, there's regular whistles.
Right.
And that's what appealed for Trump.
He's just like, Mexicans are rapists, Mexicans are this, Muslims are this. He just says it.
He just says it, yeah.
Yeah, so.
And guess who supports him? Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey Graham.
Best friend of John McCain.
Ron Placone nails it. He says, guys, it turns out we were all dead on the island the entire time.
Around the globe.
Here's a question. I say, let's say you spent 2+ years ceaselessly hyping a Trump-Russia conspiracy on your top-rated news show. Mueller has just finished his probe by finding no conspiracy. If you're Rachel Maddow, how much time do you then spend reporting on that result? 30 seconds. I saw that. I watched that episode. She spent 30 seconds talking about the debunking of her theory, and then she moved on to another theory. Can you believe that? Your theory gets debunked, and you immediately invent another evidence-free conspiracy theory just to keep going because your ego is so much that you can't handle it. What do you want to say, Malcolm?
Okay, well, I have 3 possibilities for what could really have happened in terms of what we're going to potentially move on to as the new conspiracy theory. The first one is that the Russians, remember they recruited Trump back in 1987, remember that? And they implanted a microchip in him back then. So they didn't have to have meetings. They didn't have to, they were just telling him what to do remotely. That's one. Theory 2, I just have mole people. I don't know how that works, but the third one is, and I think this may be the ingenious one, is that the Russians actually got to Rachel Maddow, David Korn, Lawrence O'Donnell, Adam Schiff. Those are the people who are actually colluding with Russia.
Because this is propping him up.
Because they're actually the ones who are doing the bidding of the Trump administration. They're the ones who have promoted this for the last 3 years. It's debunked, and now he is the cock of the walk, strutting around like he should have been on election night. And to him, he's going to ride it into 2020.
He could use this to win the next election. So I want to show you how bad the reporting and commentating has been on this. Remember Keith Olbermann? Do you remember this? Here we go.
We are at war with Russia.
That's his opener. That's his opener. You want to hear it again? Here it comes.
We are at war with Russia. Or perhaps more correctly, we have lost a war with Russia without a battle. We are no longer a sovereign nation. We are no longer a democracy. We are no longer a free people. We are the victims of a bloodless coup.
But we are definitely people who still have a thesaurus. We definitely, we lost our freedom, but not our thesaurus. What's that?
Is this recent?
No, this is from last year.
A bloodless coup engineered by Russia with, at best, the traitorous indifference of the Republican Party and Donald John Trump, a man who, to borrow a phrase,
Here, let's listen to this.
he is not a president. He is a puppet put in power by Vladimir Putin. And those who ignore these elemental existential facts, Democrats or Republicans, are traitors to this country and will immediately and forever after be held accountable.
We're all traitors. I'm a traitor, you're a traitor.
He's acting. This is not real.
And you think Glenn Beck is crazy? Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Jimmy Dore Show. I mean, the thing, Aggressive Progressive. I'm doing.
Nice one. He's multitasking.
I'm trying to work at the same time. I can't find that. Here, so I'm going to play this for you. Super Deluxe, before they went out of business, put together this mashup exposing the ridiculousness of the Trump derangement syndrome in the media. Let's enjoy it.
Donald Trump's done. He's done. There's no question about that. He's done.
Breaking news.
A bombshell.
Today is a turning point. Today was historically bad for President Trump.
Today was a turning point.
A turning point.
We're at a turning point here.
The beginning of the end for the Trump presidency.
The beginning of the end.
And breaking news.
We have another bombshell.
Mike Pence might have to assume the office of the presidency.
The call for impeachment.
Rumblings of the word impeachment.
Breaking news.
Another bombshell out of the White House.
I believe this is the beginning of the end.
I do too.
It's really the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
He may be feeling the walls closing in on him.
All the walls closing in on him.
The walls closing in on him.
Breaking news, a new bombshell.
One astrologer says this means the beginning of the end for President Donald Trump.
The beginning of the end of the Trump presidency. Trump will resign.
Trump is going to resign.
Is this the tipping point? I know we've said it over and over.
You think this is a tipping point?
And over and over.
This is a tipping point.
And over and over.
Breaking news, President Trump off the rails.
It was the beginning of the end today.
The beginning of the end.
It reminds me a lot of the last days of Nixon.
Breaking news tonight, new bombshell.
This is the beginning of the end. The beginning of the end. This is a tipping point.
Trump's going down.
This president could be impeached.
I do not think the president will serve out his term. Resignation. I don't think this president is going to serve out his term. Mr. Trump will not serve out his term. He will not serve out his term. No way know-how.
Breaking news, absolute bombshell. I think Donald Trump is in trouble.
Donald Trump is not. He's done. And it's over.
It's over.
The wall's closing in.
The wall's closing in.
This is going to be the Achilles heel.
Breaking news tonight, I expect Trump to depart.
This week will be the watershed week.
Trump is in big trouble.
Trump's in a lot of trouble.
It's a sign of a terrified old man who feels the
Walls
closing in.
The walls
are increasingly
Closing in on him.
Tonight, the walls
They're closing in.
today changed everything. This is the beginning
of the end.
today, the biggest
Tipping point for the Trump administration.
What a historic day. The bombshells, they fell.
It's entropy and it's crumbling internally.
He's underwater. He feels
The wall's closing in.
Could his testimony be a turning point?
we may be at a tipping point.
It's the beginning of
The end. The beginning.
Of the end.
Another bombshell.
Bombshell. Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
This is a bombshell.
It is a bombshell.
I am beginning to resent the word bombshell.
That was Super Deluxe. Great job by the people at Super Deluxe. I'm sorry that channel's off the air now. Woo! That was something, huh?
And that was just from one day.
I feel like the walls are closing in on us.
Wow. It's a tipping point for sure.
Wow. That's a bombshell. It's definitely a
The walls
bombshell.
are closing in. We're underwater.
Or as Keith Olbermann would say,
There is no time for a full review or a measured analysis or recommendations to prevent interference in our future elections, because permitting Donald Trump to assume the office of president reduces the chance that we will have any future elections.
All right, just for the viewers. Okay, so obviously this is not something that he's speaking off the cuff.
No,
he wrote
he
a
wrote it
script.
down.
Then he revised the script. He practiced a couple of times, and they changed the words here and there. And he's like, "Let me get extra angry in this section. No, you know, I'll tone that down and get extra angry in this section." That's a joke.
It's a joke.
That's not anything remotely resembling news or journalism. That's just a joke. He's a performance artist.
Yes. Yes.
That's what that is, performance art.
All of our freedoms hang by a thread, and the military apparatus of this country is about to be handed over to scum who are beholden to scum, Russian scum.
Silly. It's unbelievable. It's so over the top. It's so over the top.
Like that's a grown man.
Yes. Scum.
That's a grown
Russian
man.
scum.
Screaming and pounding the table about Russian scum.
And Jimmy and I were talking about this.
2017, 2018.
But the whole problem is, like, let's substitute anybody. Mexican scum. Jewish scum. Come on.
Put any other nationality in there, and you would be run out of time on the radio.
Korean scum.
I'm sure if Ilhan Omar had just referred to Israelis as Israeli scum,
right?
It would have blown over.
Yeah, she would have been fine.
But
right?
Russian scum, that's perfectly okay. That, you know what that's called? That's called bigotry and xenophobia. That's what that is. That's not okay to do, but that's, again, so this is showing that guys like Keith Olbermann are no different than Glenn Beck and Sean Hannity. He's no different. Why? Because as soon as someone excites his lizard brain, all his critical thinking skills go out the window, and he pushes conspiracy theories, propaganda at the top of his lung, and he doesn't care that he's ramping up a Cold War. That's why he's no better, and exactly like Glenn Beck, and he's exactly like Sean Hannity. I'm sorry, Keith Olbermann is only able to tell the truth when it aligns with his partisan view. And this is the same idiot who went on The View and apologized to George Bush and John McCain. That's who that guy is. That guy is the destruction of journalism. That guy. Not me, that guy. You want to hear him again? Here we go.
Chance that we will have any future elections. The nation and all of our freedoms hang by a thread, and the military apparatus of this country is about to be handed over to scum who are beholden to scum, Russian scum.
That is, at first it was funny, but now I'm just kind of getting angry. Like, that's ridiculous.
Isn't it?
You can't call the Russians people. I mean, how is that different from saying Mexican rapists, Mexican murderers? It's the same thing. So Russian scum, this is unacceptable.
I mean, the Mexicans, they're invading our country. They're trying to take over. It's the same thing, but it's Russians instead of Mexicans. So it's okay with liberals.
It's unacceptable.
So this is,
I mean, to categorize any group of people as scum like that and be so sanctimonious and self-righteous and pound the table, what a joke.
So they say when something really annoys you about someone else, it's because it's something in you that you do. And so the guys like Keith Olbermann, who have been screaming the loudest in the most unhinged way about Donald Trump, isn't because they're the most unlike Donald Trump. Those people are the most like Donald Trump.
Oh my gosh, it's like the walls are closing in on my brain.
Yeah.
That was a tipping point, Jimmy.
That's a tipping point.
That was a tipping point, yeah.
Russian scum.
And the military apparatus of this country is about to be handed over to scum who are beholden to scum, Russian scum.
Nobody saw that because he works for GQ somehow and they have a YouTube channel, I guess. I don't know. But in the larger picture,
how are you not run out of media because he said that?
But because they agree with him.
Because everybody agrees with him.
But in the larger picture, this really does undermine the media in ways, and it elevates the conservative media.
Yes,
because the conservative media were right about this.
That's right.
Like all these stories about
so you can't make fun of Benghazi anymore. You can't make fun of Sean Hannity.
When the Russians hacked into the Vermont electrical system, or Paul Manafort met with Julian Assange, or all these stories, or that the Russians had hacked into the Chicago voter rolls, and all these stories that later were debunked, but the New York Times and Washington Post didn't run the follow-up saying, oh, it turns out that wasn't true, or they did a small story on page 834, but the Daily Caller and Fox News and these other outlets, these conservative outlets, they would debunk it. They would debunk it, but the people who read the New York Times and the Washington Post don't see that.
And we debunked it at this show.
But it gives them credibility.
Yes.
It undermines the Washington Post and the New York Times and MSNBC and CNN, and it bolsters them, which you shouldn't be wanting to do. You shouldn't be supporting that because they are terrible.
Yes.
They are terrible, but because they get this right, they can point to that. Donald Trump can point to these. Oh, they make fun of me for watching Fox News all the time. Who got collusion right?
The irony is, Malcolm, that the very people who would point to me and my show and this show and say that we're helping Donald Trump, why don't you ever criticize the Republicans? Why do you only criticize the Democrats? Why are you propping up Trump? Those people are the very people who are actually propping up Donald Trump. That's the irony. So we're 100% right. So I expect to be fired just like Phil Donahue was, and Ed Schultz, and Ashley Banfield, and Jesse Ventura. And so I expect to walk out of here and get a pink slip, and because we were right. And nobody likes to have people around that remind you that you got it wrong, especially Russian scum.
January 20th will not be an inauguration, but rather the end of the United States as an independent country. It will not be a peaceful change of power. It will be a usurpation, and the usurper has no validity, no credibility, and no authority under the Constitution. This is a reality that will become the only reality until this country rids itself of Donald John Trump. He is not a president. He is a puppet put in power by Vladimir Putin. And those who ignore these elemental existential facts, Democrats or Republicans, are traitors to this country and will immediately and forever after be held accountable. Resist. Peace.
But do you see what he's saying there? Is that Donald Trump cannot assume the presidency. We must stop him at all costs.
Right.
So he's saying this is-
He's not recognizing the legitimacy of the election is what Keith Olbermann is doing.
Right, and it seems, but unless you do that, unless you go along with Keith Olbermann in rejecting it, you're a traitor.
You're a traitor.
No, I think the traitor is the person who doesn't respect the election.
Well, irony, right?
And that he is, that he's unaware of that is shocking.